Okay, welcome everybody in live stream and everywhere else in the universe to the 23rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop. And I think we're ready to begin here. And Mr. Kesh is on the line, and we have Armin as well from the Spaceship Institute, and several others from our regulars. And I think we're ready to get right into it here. So I'll pass it over to Mr. Kesh, who will introduce the topic of the day, perhaps. And we have some questions from several people that we can start addressing when he's ready for that. Okay, Mr. Kesh, how would you like to start there today?
Starts with the permission of the governments. We will see. Uh, I have a rough idea of what to expect. We have split the trial into 3 sections, and one of the sections is the use of the cup of life. Yeah.
If possible. Sorry about that.
What I said is part of the work of the foundation. As we said, we were asked by the African nation to participate in seeing if the technology can be applied in the condition in Ebola in Africa. We received a direct request through an ambassador, and um, and the materials has left the foundation to run 3 trials. The first cup of life has left the foundation for live testing in Africa, and 2 other materials which we have provided. In reality, we will know once it arrives and the authorization is received by the government and the president of the nation that the trial can be headed, because the request has come directly from the what do you call it, at the highest level in the government, because there is no solution at the moment for this disease. The reason we participate in this trial in such a rapid way, and the request from the ambassador, has been that Ebola is a virus, and in the space there are more viruses than anything else, germs or whatever. So we will see if the trials done by the doctors and connections we have on the field will show any positive results. If so, the materials can be immediately produced on site for disinfecting, and if you see, we can reverse the conditions. This is unknown for us, but it's the first time or second time internationally we are involved in in crisis management of certain situations. As you know, Fukushima has already led to the work which the inquiry is going on already this week, as I was told, in Fukushima. And there is a decision making in the coming weeks in how we're going to develop a system for decontamination of the land in Fukushima in conjunction with Japanese organizations. So it's the second time which we've been asked to interfere where there is no answer, to see if we can find an answer, even though we do not know the full outcome till it's tested on the ground. And the material sent is, one is a cup of life, the one is the material to be able to disinfect directly any virus or anything which has been touched, and one is for internal consumption, that we see if we can change the characteristic of this disease internally. One of the biggest problem with this disease is it produces internal bleeding. We look at it a different way. The internal bleeding is because the cells in the blood become, what do you call it, very, very active, that they can pass through the fibers of the blood vessels, and they become very, what we call it, if you go it by measurement, very thin. So we try to change the characteristics, and one of the materials we send has these characteristics. We've seen it. So by hopefully the government testing it, if they get the permission, which we think is the permission's already been allowed by requesting for help, then we'll see what the outcome will be. This is important for us in the deeper space trials, and we will see what comes out of this second trial. The material should be in Africa within the next few days, and this, I think, will give us another dimension into the whole process. The position is that if it's positive, immediately African nations can do everything themselves without any support from outside to eradicate and bring this thing under control in a matter of weeks. Then this gives us another insight into the process of the virus control. But then we pass any information like this to the team which earlier we given to with the medical side for them to look into it and take it further. There is a addition to the whole thing that the Malta Health Center is on the process of getting set up as a company this next couple of weeks, hopefully. And then we operate in Malta as a health center internationally. This is a thanks to very much hard work of the Maltese group, Emmanuel and Yo. And this is important for the foundation in the support of the health section. The situation with Fukushima, as I just mentioned earlier, is that there is an inquiry set up by the company in respect to the Fukushima decontamination in Japan. Started last Monday, and once they have their preliminary reports of the inquiry within the next week or so internally, then there is a plan for travel to Tokyo with the Japanese companies and the organizations and government to realign the process of decontamination of both for land and at the same time the power supply. These are the things which at the moment in the holiday time is in progress. In the lab we have no development as such. We're just maintaining the reactors without running any of them in a process of being ready when the knowledge seekers come back. I have made a couple of mistakes in loading, but maybe they always say there is a reason for mistakes, but we'll see what these mistakes will bring. They've been overloaded with gas in 2 occasions while one line has been left open. but always it gives a good news. In a way, we create a compression in the containers. Nothing drastic has happened, but the results are there. And very strange is that I think when Arman comes back and start feeding his ganses into these reactors, we should see very interesting effects, because the GANS reactors have, and start showing, especially the one closest to the center set, it shows immediate reaction in power every time we feed hydrogen. It drops from 1.2 amps to about 9.9 amps. It drops by 30% every time I introduce the smallest amount of hydrogen into the cores of the center core or outer core. This is very much interesting as a point of interaction of the plasmas in the reactors. There is not much more I can explain what is happening. There is a point which is important for the foundation, is that we will release all our knowledges, as we said, on the website and through the papers which they go on the forum of the website. I have asked Webmaster to create a new what do you call it, button on the Keshe Foundation website, where it directly links to all these teachings, all the knowledge seekers workshops. So where there is like the new papers, it'll be new papers and the knowledge seekers workshop, or the workshops next to it. So very soon you can directly connect to the workshops through the website. Is there any question?
Yes, there was a question on the live stream regarding can the Keshe Foundation make available PDF plans for the Cup of Life through PayPal, through PayPal. Is that something to consider?
When we release the Cup of Life, it'll be done the process step by step. There is only 9 cups left here which we made originally. One is on its way to Africa, as I said. It needs some modification. I did a small modification on it before it was left. Whatever we learn in one way or another, we let you have it. It'll be a PDF file. I was just before we go online, I was explaining to Rick and Vince that the Italian camera crew, where they made the documentary for Italian televisions, we are thinking to ask them back in here and make a full professional, very high quality video showing a step by step, that it doesn't need languages, that we try to make it in a very professional way, that anyone by looking at it can follow the steps, and then they can be subtitled by anybody they like in any language. Then you can use it, and it's a combination of cups which needs to be used, we think, at the moment, till we can make an alloy which we think can do the most of the job. There's a question risen during the past week since with the Cup of Life. In a historical way, in a way that a lot of people are looking for the Holy Grail as a cup that will give you everything, the youth and the rest. This cup, when it's finalized in its final version, is the Holy Grail. This is the mystery which the man on the different names have been looking for. So in a lot of scriptures, in a lot of books, and in a lot of holy books, they speak about the cup of the Holy Grail, that the people are looking for it. This cup will be, in its final version, the Holy Grail. This will be the cup which you are looking for youth, for illness, and everything else. But it needs the wisdom to understand it. It's not just by holding it or drinking from it. In the future, I will explain how this Holy Grail, this book, this cup, connects to the operation of the body. There is again separation between the physicality and the emotion or the soul of the man. The same cup can be drunk by different men for their own needs, whatever their need will be. So, in answer to the question which I received, is this the cup which has been promised in the holy books? Yes, it is. Let us deliver it to you in the correct way. You all can drink from it. But you have to understand what your wish is and what you wish to receive from it, because it's active. You start learning back to what we said from the beginning. Pray for your reactors, pray for your cups, because these cups have to be transparent and clear that they can give what you need. I had a religious person asking me, can you confirm this book or this cup is the Holy Grail? Yes, it is. So if you've been looking for it and digging for it for many thousands of years, it's in your hand once you know how to do it. But the Holy Grail, people look for physicality. But you have to understand these layers, as you understood, are dynamic. And they feel and they understand. They don't feel, they have the fields which interacts with your three-dimensional physicality through its gravitational magnetic field. In so many cases, you don't even need to drink from the cup. You can hold the cup and receive what you need. If you see in the picture of the cup, it's coated both sides, internally and externally. Internal is connected, when you drink it, with the operation of your emotion and soul. External, when you hold it, is connected to your physicality. So the hand and the thought has to be in sequence. Has to be one to be able to receive the cup from the knowledge and the wish from the cup of Holy Grail. I told you there are 2 steps to explain. This is the second step, or the first step of the 2. Don't look for the cup. These cups have a dimension, 3-dimension layers, both sides, internally and externally, as you see in the pictures. You hold it. It's, yeah. This cup, when you hold it from outside, you are connected to its physicality. And I shown to the knowledge seekers, on the top there is a lip internally with all the cups. That's the connection between the body and the soul. When you drink from internally from the cup, then that's your communication. That's your connection with your soul or with your emotional direction. So when you look at the cup of life, this is the Holy Grail. But you have to understand, is not the water which you drink on its own. You have to be in balance between the physicality and the emotional side, which is the water. Internal coating will deliver what is to the water. External coating gives what is to the body. When they are in harmony and the same wish, you will receive what is needed. A lot of people will pick up the cup of life and they say it does nothing, it doesn't give us anything. Because your thoughts, your emotion is not in tune with the physicality and with the environment where the field was received from. When you make a prayer, when you mill these cups and give them with the life of peace, with a wish of peace and tranquility and equality, Anybody drinks from that cup will receive that, and out of it the boundary of it will not be delivered, because with your wish you have put the limitation. This is how it works. This is the most maybe important thing than building the cup itself. This is the grail. So don't look for just touching or drinking. Yes.
Mr. Keshe, will you be giving training for people to learn how to be in that proper state?
It's not a
For
proper
that?
state. It's not a proper state. It's a way of living. As I explained
Okay.
before in our works, you can give a cuddle to or you can hug a person, showing them you love them very much, but in your brain say, wish them death. The love has to be physical and in the brain. We see it a lot of times, world leaders cuddle and kiss each other, and they're the biggest enemy against each other.
Okay, so the way I understand what you're saying is that you wouldn't be able to just have that wish for healing or whatever particular thing was happening with the cup at that time. It would have to be incorporated. That wish would have to be incorporated into your life, not just for that moment, right?
No. Yes. It's the way of living. You only receive. Even people were talking about the Holy Grail. The ones who are in line with the life of Christ will receive it. All the kings of the world can find it and drink from it, and none of them will receive one thing. And you'll find one man on the street can drink from it and live a life of a king. Because he lives the way the Christ lived. This is people again looking for physicality that the cup will do. But the physicality comes from the inner being, emotional part, and the soul. This cup will put a lot of people to test. They keep on drinking and drinking till the day they find out now it works. And they say, I drank from it for 10 years, it didn't do anything. And I drank from it last week for the first time, I feel good, blah, blah, blah. Because for the first time, you understood that the wish and the act, the physicality and the emotional part has to be in a peaceful way. And then you receive it. You will find out a lot of people will use this cup and they say it doesn't work, it's rubbish. But they don't understand that their physical part, which is holding it, and their emotional part and the soul, one is not in line for a peaceful and a correct way, but you shall not receive it. This cup is very much the reactors I put the knowledge seekers in front of. And I told them to give and take. This is very much a static version of it. Don't rush to build the cup of life. Rush to correct your internal being, and then you'll find out the cup of life lives within you. Next question.
Thank you. That was a really good answer, I think. There's a similar question regarding can they, meaning the Keshe Foundation, make a PDF plans for the day-night panel and pay that through PayPal?
It's not paying. We will make a video, and people can make it themselves, or the companies who want to make it, they can do it. But as I said before, the Italians were here this week. We are emptying one of the batteries which has been charged to empty. I think it should have been finished by this morning. It takes about more than 24 hours to empty the batteries. These are small batteries which we use once they are fully charged. So they are leaving the light on for since Tuesday lunchtime. We fixed it here to empty it. Until yesterday lunchtime, I heard it was still shining at 50%. So if he empties by today or tomorrow totally, then they put it back on the circuit to recharge it, and then that's the second time. Then when it's recharged, we hopefully we show it here next week if the Italians want to do it. I've asked them that if they can come and we open the cameras here for people to be able to see it, and they will commercialize it here directly from next week. But now we have to do this test that we empty the battery totally and reload it again for the second torch. And so now we have 3 torches running on this basis. They have the circuits, everything on a what do you call it, on a small board, all fixed. As before, we give everything freely. It's there if you want to make a donation to the foundation, and people who want to copy it, they can do it. This will be done the same with the video with the Italian camera crew. We'll see once we get to it. I have to deliver the same version to our Japanese group in Tokyo. They've requested it. So most probably the commercial version will be coming out of on the heavy side from Tokyo, from Japanese company. While we are in Tokyo, while we are in Japan, we'll come to understanding of how to do it and find the best ways to do
it. There's a similar question from the live stream from Harming. Can one of the knowledge seekers make a video showing how to build a static reactor that produces at least 100 volts?
The volt doesn't count. This is one of the problems you'll find out with these systems when you go on the plasma reactors, on the static, the way we do it with the nano coating. You take from it what you need. This is what I keep on saying. With the nano layers, you can increase it by parallel and series connection to voltage and currents as you need. This will be done most probably by the Italian company who will make the batteries as a power supply, and the Japanese. Any other question?
Yeah, Mr. Keshe, is there any similarity between the cup of life and like a lot of priests around the world, and they pray over the holy water and then give it to the church people?
I don't know. You got to ask the priest what he wishes when he gives the water. You got to understand the gesture which was made. When the water and the bread was given. The bread was broken. This is my body. And the water was, or the wine, as they give. Now you understand the process of the cup. The physicality of the cup is the bread. To understand the essence, you have to understand the gesture, what is meant. Does it mean that if you are in the church and the priest gives you the bread and something happens and you don't get the wine, you don't receive anything? You look at the physicality, you have to look at the structure. You have to understand why, with what intention the Christ gave this. Blessed his name. They are too physical. Try to understand the purpose and what connection was made. There is no sign of the bread after 2000 years, or the original bread. It's something very interesting. As you know, I believe in every belief because it's part of who I am and what I am and the way I understand. So many times I've sat with my wife in services in churches, and I've seen the people be passed from one to another for people to put money in it to be collected at the other end. What about if we put in, and in between the one next to us needs the money to live and can take from it? How do you think the other two on either side who put the money in the box feel? Did they give it for the one who needs it to take it, or did they give it that they can be, to be shown to be givers? This is the whole misfit with understanding of man and of the physicality. I was present in a meeting of some religious group, and a person asked for help from the group, financial help, because he was in problem. And I asked the head of the group, this man needs to be helped, otherwise he doesn't come to you. The response shook me and changed my life in so many ways, is that he said, we are here to receive and not to give. It's his problem. So what is the essence of the body of the Christ? The physicality is in problem and you give the body, but you don't understand that affects the soul too. So don't look if the bread and the wine is the same thing. We change the bread because bread to man is the essence of life. It's what gives nourishment to physicality, and wine touches the brain, the emotion. That's what the reality means. When the bread and the wine are in harmony, you receive what Christ tried to give you. So the cup of life is the same. What is the outside the cup has to be in harmony with what's in the cup. And then you'll be enlightened and you receive what you need. Next question.
Morning, Mr. Keshe. It's Vince. So I wanted to ask you about the water in the cup, because of the plasma that is surrounding it. It will structure that water according to that plasma. So that will also happen in any other devices that have these nano-coated wires in them. And is there a way to structure the water in that type of environment to be able to do what we want to do, as in the cups of life, without having to coat them in different forms, like different colors, as you said?
You can, in a further steps in the future, the cup of life will be the dynamic reactors. We already have started our process with the knowledge seekers, where they sat in front of the reactor without touching it, in receiving what they wanted to receive or give what they wanted to give. In a space we don't have water and bread or physicality of the copper all the time. So how you create that environment in a liquid or in an environment in a vacuum, what energy is what you wish, what you give, and what you take. So if you use nano layers, if you use dynamic reactors, if you use coated copper cups and what do you call it, brass cups or aluminum cups or nickel cups, it doesn't make any difference, because the coating is more or less black in one part or the other. The blackness, it means it absorbs all the bad, because your thoughts are two-dimensional, gravitational and magnetic. So the black part absorbs everything, the full spectrum. You cannot harm these cups. And you cannot cause these harms to harm anyone to be harmed by. So if you use a wire, these are all, again, I told you, look for physicality. You can make an environment around your dynamic reactors which literally behave like cup of life. You can touch, be in touch with this atmosphere, with this with this field, and receive exactly as what you do with a cup of life. One of the things I'm very looking into, interest with a lot of interest, what's gone to Africa, one of the cup of lives, is to see who benefits by it and who doesn't receive it. They are looking to see if it heals people, but it's not a healing process. I want to see the record they make, who has survived using it, or if anybody survived using it. And then later on, send them a questionnaire and ask them what they wish was at the time when they drank from the cup.
I think that's a very good example of having to create the need, I think is what I'm trying to get at, to be able to receive the effects, let's say. Because if you're drinking it and you even have a doubt in your mind, the doubt will be a gravitational magnetic field and
I've seen it.
should
Yeah,
cause, right?
I've seen it with knowledge seekers sitting in front of the reactors with their doubts and hesitations and two way of thinking. Am I giving? Am I not getting? I would like to feel like giving, but I would like to receive. And I see it on the monitor. I know the knowledge seekers who sat in front of the reactor better than themselves in their soul, because I've seen their true soul through the monitors. They stand in front of me absolutely naked in what they are and who they are. I always said my technology will not be accepted because of its benefit, but because of the fear of its use and what it can do and it can change. And we've seen it. In Fukushima, how it's going to be used because of the fear of life, which is damages caused by man. And now hopefully in Africa with Ebola. If this technology proves to be correct and it can deliver what it's supposed to, then you find out that a lot of viruses can be handled through this very simple methods. Because you have to understand the operation of the virus within the structure of the physicality interaction of fields with matter. With microbes is a structure, it's a physicality interaction and division. With viruses is mainly field interaction, which a lot of medical science has never understood, but pharmaceuticals have never understood. That's why they got a problem with viruses. So it's the first time we interact as a field, and we'll see. It is a lot of knowledge within the same structure. There's a lot of energy and information within the same structure. It all depends what your soul and your physicality tunes into. Something which a lot of knowledge seekers which try to make these lights, day and night lights, have to remember is In so many ways, when you make these lights, pray for your lights, that enlightens you. Then you'll find out the physical light is just not even necessary to see the truth. Because don't forget, these layers absorbs even emotion, because it's a plasma. This is what the man has to start understanding. With the new technology, nothing is hidden and nothing is wasted. When you build your torch, when you build your cup of life, these are in layers, three-dimensional, gravitational magnetic fields, which they receive what they need to receive. So they receive your emotions, and at the same time as your emotions fields, your emotion is passed on to the next person, to the next time, to the next time you need it, to bring it to a level. Next question. The man will be put, let me say something, the man will be put to a full test with this new technology. To test himself, not to test the materials. And it'll be very interesting to see what the outcome will be.
Mr. Keshe, do you make a distinction at all between the emotions of the human emotions, you might say, and then what you sometimes call feelings from the essential self, or from the soul, or being? Is there a difference there? Do you make a distinction,
No,
or is it all
the
sort of the same?
emotion and the feelings are the same, but the feelings is the connection to physicality. Emotion, you feel, you want whatever, and the feeling allows you to show it through crying or reacting. I don't make much, because it's very much separation between the physicality and the soul. I had a very strange experience yesterday. I had to go to a meeting on a highway, and on the highway in front of me was a hearse with a coffin in it. And as my usual habit, I said, take whatever you need. And I felt that the soul didn't want anything. And it was very strange for me. I had to drive next to it, and I thought, my God, you know, take whatever you need if you're short of anything. And I drove off, and then I thought maybe the coffin was empty. They were taking it somewhere to put a body in it. So it depends if it was a body inside and it has received everything it needed to be at its own level to be comfortable, or was nothing in there, so you give, you don't know if it's going to be received. Feeling is to do with physicality. Emotion and soul is different. I was explaining this to somebody. Asked me, can you, this week we had a discussions, I think it was with Caroline, says, what's the purpose of this life? Why are we living? I explained to her that a mother gives life to a child. Even though the child is inside the mother, the child carries a soul. When mother gives birth with a lot of pain and what the sacrifices of carrying this body for 9 months, whatever, with her, once the body is released, the mother has served her purpose, and the purpose of mother was to give life to a new life. Now, this life exists for a few seconds, or lives for 100 years, the purpose of this life is to give life to a soul, to creation of the soul. Doesn't mean if the life lived here for 100 years, or life which lived here for a few seconds is any difference. No. Actually, the one who dies early, or leaves their physicality early, does not carry any harms, or nothing has been taken from it. It's a pure soul. The man who lives 100 years has harmed a lot of people and has been harmed a lot too. So his souls and his level has been changed. So the purpose of the physicality is not why we are born. We are born to be incubator for the creation of the soul, to separate the physicality from non-physicality. And that's all it is. That's why, what was the purpose of the mother? To give birth to the child. And with it, with a new child, give the birth to a new soul, creation of new soul, to make it without dimension. What happened to the feeling of the mother with all the pain she went through to deliver is the same as when the body leaves with all the pains with it, to allow to separate the soul from it, that the soul will have its own life, independent of the physicality. The same as the child became independent from the mother by being given birth to. We are born to deliver, to be the creator of a soul which is non-dimensional, a being entity without dimension. And that's the purpose of the creation of the physical man. You call it a soul, you call it the emotional part which is connected to the soul. The minute the main brain in the womb of the mother is created, the soul of the man is complete. The test of time is what you increase, you add to it, or you take away from it. As we've seen, a lot of priests stood and give the bread and the wine to children, and at the same time, after the service, they abuse the children. So, where does that soul go, and where does the young soul go? Was that the intention of the man who broke the bread originally with his soul? And that man abused it with the soul of the child who's been abused by the priest. And in the front, given the bread as a gesture of the Christ, body of the Christ. Is it the same hand? This is the man, but we'll see through the man in no time. And as I said, not many people will be on the boat of Noah when it comes. It's not that we stop you getting on. You will judge yourself. You'll avoid to get on, or ever arrive to be a passenger on it. Because you know at the gates you'll be tested. You will be the judge of your own doing before you, because as he said in the story of Noah, the best of the animals, 2 of each were taken. Then we don't judge, you judge yourself, you deserve to be on. It's the same as I said, the guy who stole the book from the foundation, downloaded and think, oh, I got it free. You'll be asked on that step, then you decide. You are a thief or not, because that way your habit in the space. We don't make the judgment is left by you, with you. As I always said, I always say to the people, do not judge the house of gods by the man who breaks the bread.
Mr. Keshe, there was a question regarding that illegal downloading of the copies of your books and so on, which you mentioned might be as many as 100,000 times. Sandor mentions, how about to offer an amnesty to those who downloaded and to invite them to contribute with a payment to the Keshe Foundation's PayPal account?
No, we are not looking for physical payment. It's not for, it's the intentions. It is the intentions. I was with, this came to me very early on with Professor Mile. As you know, I was with Professor Weil in Germany 2-3 years ago, and I was in his house, and he showed me one of his books, and he said, Mehran, this book is 600 odd pages, and they have downloaded it, and it's free on the website. You can download it, but nothing comes to us with the scientists. And he said, I have no income from it because they've done this to me. I said, don't worry, the one who done it, they never received the knowledge. They just read the book. It's like a monkey. The true knowledge is not transferred the way the writer writes. It's not to do with the foundation. There are other people. It's the habit which comes. This morning, before I started Skype, it says your Skype is out of date. It cannot be joined. You need to upload. So I pressed it, and I thought, oh God, I don't have a connection here to pay by Visa for the payment. I hope I don't do something wrong with it. And it was a free download. It's just updating, and then when I upgraded it, it could go back on. It has to be inside you. Not I've done it now. There is no, what do you call it? Payment to be released of the punishment. There is no amnesty. It's you who've done it. You got to do it, and you understand it. I had one of the knowledge seekers telling me, oh, I downloaded your book, and then because I read, I was here. I said, your soul is already lost, and he's not here with us. So it's thinking is your right to do. If I put my books free on the internet, there is no condition. If it's put a condition on anything is your right to do it, you already broken your ties. The understanding is there is no more punishment. There is no punishment. The time of punishment is finished. I said to my wife a few days ago, if I release the punishment on the tribe of Moses with what they are doing, there'll be no name left of Moses on this planet. If I do the same with Muhammad's followers, it'll be the same. There'll be no name of Islam left. Not even papers. But the time of punishment is finished. Man has to find his own peace. Then there is no punishment. Then everything is correct. By God, so many times in past few weeks, I sit and I say, something has to be done with this situation. Punishment has not worked with the man because man never understood that in the universe there is no punishment, there is always a balance. At the beginning of today, I said, when I feed a small amount of hydrogen in the reactor in one side, the GANS reactor changes its power because it needs it to be in balance with the rest, that the full 12 reactors can be in harmony. This is what's become a habit of the man. And actually one of the best things has happened to the man is the internet. Because now man instantaneously can test himself. I don't know if we get a permission or not. One of the Iranian followers, I think it's from Austria, sent me an email and a link to one of the Iranian singers, very well-known singers, has sung a song. It's a song that it literally captures the whole meaning of what the foundation stands for, but it's in Farsi. And I could literally put it on the link on the foundation and put it as, you know, this is what the foundation thinks. I wrote an email to him. It says, can you please write to the singer and ask for the permission if he allows us, with a subtitle, that we could use this as an anthem for the foundation. And I went and I found the website of the singer, and I wrote an email to him that if you could allow us to have this as an anthem of the foundation. And it's all the wishes and what man feels about everything which we are, as there were no guns and there were no prisons, because man has got the habit of killing, and then if you're caught, you spend your time in prison. The prison has to be within your soul. Fear of what I'm not going to receive for myself, what I think I can give, and what I shouldn't receive, which I'm not receiving with what I do wrong. You find out a lot of these habits does not exist with the people who are vegetarian, generation of vegetarians. There's still animosity sits, but the animalness in the level does not exist. Do we receive too much energy that we use it for aggression, or we have to release it as aggression, or we find a high with it that we use it to repeat it to get that high? This is the problem. When you drink from cup of life, it might take you 3 months, 10 years for your soul and your physicality to come to balance for you to see the result. These cup of lives have been given by the foundation out in different form and cover for past 10 years to the what do you call it, to the health side of the processing of the body, but nobody understood. There are thousands and thousands of cup of lives in its true sense with the people who've been with the foundation. If you have used our systems, the blue cups or the green cups or the black cups, the color of the cup has a meaning. Then you already have, most probably in one of the systems in combination, received the cup of life. That's why you feel better and you walk away from it, from your own physical problems. Now we're making it in a general way for people to see. There is no punishment. The time of punishment is finished. Punishing has never answered any of the questions and the levels which the Prophet of the past have set. Punishing does not serve. You punish your child 100 times and you give him a cuddle and a kiss that he feels, if I don't do right, I won't get a kiss and a cuddle and the warmth. You'll find out you get a better result. The time of punishment with the way it was set by Moses Christ and other prophets of God is finished. We leave it to you to deprive yourself from what you're about to receive.
Mr. Keshe, there's a question. What is Mr. Keshe's view about what is going on in Gaza?
You don't want to know. You do not want to know.
Okay, then I have another question along those lines.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. As you know, where we live in one of the most beautiful parts of this planet. I don't think God would have been any kinder. In this place, when I go for a walk, it happens quite often, even now because it's summer holidays, and people from all over the world come here to spend their holiday time, the peace of their body or their physicality. And I hear a lot of Hebrew because of my background. I understand a little bit of Hebrew, and always speak to these people. They come from Israel for holidays, and my wife was talking to one of them last weekend, and the woman was trying to say, what you hear on the news is not what's happening in Israel. This is all wrong. And they try to justify how and why they're killing each other. And I always, when I talk to them, I said, my biggest problem is I come from both sides of the fence. And I don't see any reason for fighting for a piece of land. And the reality is, I don't agree with what the Palestinians do to the Israelis, and I don't agree with the Israelis do with the Palestinians. But you have to understand the reasons of each side. One is doing to free the group, and one is doing to protect the group. And both is out of fear. Unjustified fear, which is built to sell arms. The strangest thing is, if you're one part of the Palestine, you can work in Israel, and the same Palestinian from another part are locked down. And they're cousins and brothers living in two different parts of the same nation. When I was in Israel the last time, I went to a holy place, and I could hear Arabs doing the gardening. And I said, what happened to the Jews here? We are in Israel. Oh, we don't have this problem here. We work and we live together. They come from across the border, from one side, one section of the Palestine, to work and their home and family, and from another section of the same place, same background, they're terrorists, and they have to be killed. So, who's getting benefited by it? The ones who are selling arms, and they justify it. But the problem is, I have prayed in the mosque, I have prayed in synagogues, and I have prayed in churches. And the feeling in all of them is emptiness and no God. If you walk into a church, you feel the smell of death. You walk into the synagogue, you get the same smell. You go to a mosque, you get the same smell. To go to temples, you get, it's the smell of death of the body of the man. And nobody smells it. It's not a physical death, it's the emotion which is dead. There is nothing there. They come there for one purpose, to rob, to beg, and not to give, and not to receive. The holy places, the religious places, and the nations which are built under the name of religions all smell exactly the same, of rotten meat, in different ways. You walk into Vatican, you smell it. You walk into biggest mosques, you still smell it. Because the essence of the teaching of the Prophet is not there anymore. There's just physicality to frighten people. The bigger building you build, the more people get frightened and they think you're more powerful. I say to my, sometimes when I talk, the temples and the churches and the mosques and all these synagogues have to be built underground, that the man realizes what is destination at the end. That's what's got to be frightened of, not what's on the top. Because at the end you end up under the ground. Next question.
You just mentioned smell. You walk into a room and you can essentially smell the atmosphere of the room, but in a different way than most people do, let's say. Is that associated with GAN's material? You mentioned that it's nanoparticles are part of smell.
It's the emotion. It's the emotions which are left.
Okay, how is it that it's like, for example, science knows that smell is the most immediate emotion. It's the one that has the least number of least distance to the brain, to the mind, let's say. So it's the thing that's the most immediate when we walk into a room. We go by smell first, and then by sight and hearing and such forth.
No, no, there is a step before a smell. Smell, you have to understand physical structure. A smell is a gas in a GANS structure. It's a crystal structure. A gas takes over its shape. If you release hydrogen in a square, it takes the shape of the square. In a sphere, it takes the shape of the sphere. A smell is a gas in its diamond crystal structure. And then when it goes to your nostrils through the bone which is in front of your head, it changes it to what your brain can recognize it at. But before the smell, before you smell, in your forehead, right in front of your head, you see it in whales and in dolphins. Right in front of your forehead, in your brain, you have a receiver which smells and tastes and understands the emotion before you smell the smell. It's like a sonic receiver. That does not need eye. That does not need physicality because it's part of the brain. It's instantaneous. This is how you build trust against somebody or feel safe with someone. You don't smell them to feel if they smell safe. You don't eat them to see if they're safe to eat. Eyes are part of your skin, which over millions of years they've been stretched and stretched, they become transparent. The forehead of in front of your head, which is directly connected to your emotion, is the recognition. You don't need to smell. You feel, you understand, you taste the environment, you taste what has been left behind. You don't smell the clothing, you don't smell the chairs. You know what is left in the chairs, what is left in the environment of the room, and that's what I feel when I go into these places. This is what our ancestors used to do. Is you feel the emotion, you feel the soul, and this is part of what I do. And I always say to my wife and to people around me, the only people they can fail is themselves, not me, because I know them, I see them. The essence is when you feel good, you live good. And that's how it is. A lot of people tell me, why don't you release the medical side and make millions of and open all the... I said no, because then it loses its essence. I can do 200, 300 medicals and make a foundation, very rich organization looking nice from outside. But I don't carry the essence of, to them, what they need to do. But you have to understand, people don't understand what it actually is and how it is, and how they themselves allow people to abuse them physically, but they suffer through the loss of their souls. We show physically what we want to show, but emotionally and through our soul, we never show, because the man has not managed to read the soul. Once you become pure enough to read the soul of the man, you'll find out that you don't need the physicality. I explain this in every shape or form in the marriage, in relationships, and you see more and more of it. We had a case, I don't know if I mentioned this before, we had a case in Ninove, where the woman was paralyzed due to a disease, and she came to us and she could walk. When she was with me, I hold her hand and she could walk in the room. And her husband says, "You're done worse. She's not improved. This is all a gimmick and everything else." I asked her to sit with me private and explain to me. She said, "The minute I can walk, the minute I can show I can walk, he rapes me." And that's what he's done to me for 30 years. So I pretend to be paralyzed so I'm safe. So there is nothing wrong with your process. It's worked. I couldn't walk, now I can walk. But the minute he's home and he can see me walking, I'm back on the table. So what is wrong? The man, the behavior of man, or physicality of man, or the process? We are used to abusing anything. It's our right to abuse. But I see, I feel, I don't need the eye to see. And a lot of you have the same power. It's just that you blinded yourself to it because physicality is easier to make a decision. Next question.
Are
Hello?
there any questions from the GoToMeeting people?
I think a lot of people have started asking themselves a question.
Yeah, they're afraid to ask a question at this point.
I have some questions, Mr. Keshe.
No.
This is Brett.
Yes, Brett.
Can you hear me? Okay. At the center of the structure of the heart, where the fibers are that create the electrical activity, that specific structure, you can create a similar.
Can you repeat it? Can you repeat
Sure.
the question? I lost the first bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
At the heart, the fibers in the heart where the electrical signals happen, that structure allows for the implosion of energy to come in. Now, in the center of the brain, when you create this structure through thoughts and you create the emotional connection, creates that structure, that is also what allows you to receive the plasma, correct?
I don't understand. Can you explain what you mean?
It's hard to explain without getting into a lot of details that people understand. I sent you an email. If you could read the email, it'll help me understand what I'm trying to get through. It's understanding more of it, that's all.
Can you formulate your question in a different way that makes it simple to answer?
No, I had to write like a page of information to explain it all.
Then how do you expect Mr. Keshe to answer the question in one sentence?
Because if he had an idea of what I was saying, he would be able to. But I don't know. That's why.
But nobody else will understand. Nobody else will understand your question if it's too detailed, and won't be of any benefit to anyone else in that case. So try to formulate it now if you can, or else go on to another one. I think I understand somewhat of what you're saying there. I think you're trying to connect the heart and the brain with feelings. Can you formulate it a little better, perhaps?
It's not just the heart and the brain. You create the specific structure allows for the energy to come in and be absorbed. And if you can create that structure, it'll absorb the energy. And your thoughts and your electrical activity in your brain create a structure that allows a constructive wave that implodes energy and absorbs it. And if you don't have that correct thought and structure, it won't allow it. So it's the same thing with your heart rate and your breathing. It allows the structure to be absorbed, the plasma to be absorbed.
In so many ways, maybe I understand your question. Maybe I can answer it the same. Um, your brain or your emotional part does not create a heartbeat. It's always constant. It's reactions which are the end product, where your heartbeat is a continuous change. You create continuously different magnetic gravitational field with your heart. The heart is very much a dynamic reactor, and you create a magnetic field. That's why you fall in love today with one woman, and in 3 years' time it changes to another woman, or vice versa. The state of brain, the emotions, the feel of the emotions of the man in the brain never changes. It's always constant according to what it is and what it needs to receive.
I'm talking about the physical structure that allows the pathway to open up to the emotional mind or to those other parts of the body, to the energy. Use the diamond structure, and then you have a five-sided
Yeah, the thing
peg
is,
structure.
no, yeah, maybe I understand you. Maybe I can answer it in a way. If I don't understand it, you correct me. This is the essence of creation of the body of man. This is what I always say in my talks. The emotional part of your being is the size of a bigger than a peanut and smaller than a walnut. It has no physical interaction, but the gravitational magnetic field which it sends out interacts with the physical body to show its to manifest its operation. What this means is that your emotional part does not send a signal to your physical part to kiss or to cuddle, but it sends the information in a field way that by it being received by your physical part of your brain, you show that reaction by kissing or cuddling or by hitting.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. But there's other structures within the body that absorb the energy the same way.
Let me explain. Each one works in different field strength, even though it's the same plasma. This is what I explained in other workshops. It's the same plasma. If you go across inward, it changes its color according to what it shows with its interaction with its environment. The heartbeat still creates a plasma condition because of what it is, its operation, but it's on a different strength, it's of different gravitational magnetic field strength of level. Parts of it can be absorbed by the emotional or can be received by the emotional part. When a soul is in need, when the emotional part is in need, it will reach the more furthest points of this universe through its field connection to receive what it needs to be in balance. This is what the man one day will understand. Very much the same as the 3 sets of reactors we set in the lab. One reactor 2 meters away with a small gas will affect the operation of another reactor, which is not even matter, directly, because it needs it to stay in where it is, to become balanced. Your soul, your emotional part, this is what I explain in a lot of my talks. This walnut, this peanut size, everything you do in your life, all your breathing, all your walking, all your thieving, all your killing, all your loving, is to keep this peanut operational. If you can take this peanut out of the structure of the body of the man, you can attach it to any physicality anywhere in the universe and it will use the same physical to carry on with its existence. You, in the future, when the time comes when the man's understanding goes to understand there is no need for physicality and the tightness with this what is created, you will carry the emotional part of the brain where you can supply energy to it directly to anywhere in the universe. You can talk to it, you can understand it, you can understand its emotion. And then it goes, as I always say, what language do the babies talk in the womb of the mother to another baby in another womb? There is no need with physicality. But at the moment it's too far for a man to understand. You will not need to carry the whole body to feed it, to have its emotion, its intelligence and its work. As I always say when I speak to the medical people, if you take this emotional part of the brain out, the rest of the body, the rest of the brain, all this huge cavity in the skull, which filled up with this material, the rest of your physical body, all your heart, leg, arms, everything else, is functioning to keep this peanut operational, that it can receive energy, that it can connect and interact with the rest of the dimensions. And man will soon understand. The more you become mature, the more you see the truth. So in the future, you don't need to carry the whole arms and legs. As I always say, you see some of the most intelligent people paralyzed in the wheelchair with no arms and legs. Physicality has nothing to do with the operation of the soul. What happens now that they're putting mechanical hearts in the body of the man? Would that affect the operation of the soul or the emotion? Would we get crazy people because it's different heartbeat? It's mechanical now, it's all chrome or whatever they use in it. This is again, you look into the physicality. The operation of the emotional part, which is connected with the soul of the man, it releases its information in the same level as what you understand as a reactor. But what is received and perceived by other part of the brain, it allows the physicality to show itself in that position and in the movement we see it. Understand something, a lot of things which is very connected to the operation of the soul, operation of the emotion, operation of the physicality, and operation of the running of the physical part. If you starve the body from oxygen, which is the way, or air, I should say, not oxygen, but if you starve the body from air, which is the conversion of the energy across the lung to the blood directly to the emotional part, the emotional part does not receive the energy and you cause death. You can go without water for days and days, and you can go without food for days and days. And as I said in a couple of workshops before, you can adjust your lung to receive the energy that it feels as you receive water, energy of the water and the food. So you understand in a very simple way that the reason if you put your hand on the mouth of somebody or suffocate someone, or someone gets suffocated, the physical body dies very rapidly, because the emotional control part, which is the essence of the whole creation, does not receive the energy it needs in a rapid way, because it's a very fast working and continuously needs to be fed. Now maybe you understand why, if you look, the breathing is one way of supply of energy, the eating is one way of supply of energy, drinking is one way of supply of energy, but each one is for different part and different purposes. The air we breathe is for rapid delivery of energy for the operation of the emotional part of the body. And it's so active and it's so dynamic that it needs continuous supply to be able to disperse the energy to the rest of it, to deliver its gravitational magnetic field. And that's why, if you can create that dynamic energy which crosses the wall of the lung to the blood, that enters the inner part of the brain very rapidly. That's why your heart is so close to your brain. Then you understand the operation of the body of the man in true essence. If you separate the emotional part of the brain, which is just the size of a peanut, not bigger than that, and you can keep it with a continuous energy which it needs to keep. It's a GANS, it's a dynamic GANS, but it looks to us to be as solid as a brain. If the scientific world looks into the structure of this emotional part, they will see exact operation of as Armand has made in the reactors, in the GANS reactors. You will see the texture, you will see the whole thing is exactly the same. So the heartbeat, the change in the heart, does the character of the man changes when you have a heart transplant? Yes, it does. But it doesn't change the emotion and the emotional part, because each heart creates a different gravitational magnetic field. This is something I made a note which I wanted to speak about, if it's something slightly in a different direction, but to do with the health side and with the physicality. In the recent past, in past 15-20 years, we have seen due to the pattern of living, of consumption of materials in a disbalanced way, and the body gets used to it, that the physical size of the body increases. We see people in 200-300 kilograms and 180 kilograms and the rest of it. This, what they call obesity, has created a very good market for people who work within the health section, and they have come up with different solutions how to lose weight, how to lose your what do you call it, fat. One of the ways which has been done, and in a way people who are heavy try to do, is to reduce their weight from 250 or 180 kilos to about 100 kilo, or become lighter. You got to realize you were not born this size. You have created a condition for the body physicality to become this size. And this process has taken years. You don't get 100 kilo, 50 kilo slapped on you. Over 10, 5, 20 years, you have created a condition to absorb more and store more. So the rest of the organs of the body have changed the same way to support this weight. This operation, to do with the liver, with the heart, with everything else, gets synchronized to be able to support a 200 kilo, because this is what it needs. If you needed, let's say, 10 milligram of something from your pancreas, 20 milligrams of something else from another gland or whatever, to operate this 200 kilogram. Now it has become fashionable that people lose weight by reduction of the stomach, by all sorts of processes. That process, it comes like a switch. You switch on, one day you can eat and the other day you gotta eat like a peanut. Because now they've done a stomach reduction. Or they've done another operation or another thing, all sorts of things which the world does to help the man, but in a way they don't understand what they create. This rapid reduction in weight, by reducing the food because you reduce the size of the stomach, does not mean that the organs in your body are going to adjust the same way with the same speed. We see drop in weight by 20, 30, 40, 50 kilo. And one of the side effects of this thing is that once you lose weight, you reduce the fat, but the skin cannot respond so rapidly as the fat layers. So what you get is a huge over layers of the skin. That sometimes they become like a hanging piece of meat. And the consequence of these at the moment is that they do the skin reduction. So what they do, you go to a hospital, they take the surplus skin off. What the medical world does not tell you is that a large percentage of the people who go through this process are showing the sign of cancer, diabetic, and death. In a large number of cases, we see a large increase in diabetic. And in a large number of people, because the lung has grown so big to support such a heavy weight, now the weight is not there, but now the body is confused with sudden loss of so much material which then it's not there. You find out even what they call the lack of oxygen in the body. What the reason I raise this point today is, please, if you go for these methods, ask the doctor, show me what's happened with your patients in the next 10 years after you've done the operation. You'll find out a large number of the people who go through this stomach reduction and then the skin removal show diabetic diseases or conditions, and they show all sorts of other problems which associates with this disbalance in the organs use or their use after the reduction. My suggestion to you is, please watch what you're doing, because we have a case already brought to us in several cases that the doctors have done. They've gone through these procedures. The stomach layers has been touched, and diabetic is in a large number of cases. Diabetic is the outcome. I think the health authorities have to stop, or the governments have to stop looking, or they have to start looking into these stomach reduction processes, not as a bad thing, but the consequences of it, which creates the diabetic and the death and cancers. This is important. If you do the weight reduction by food or by different ways that is slowly carried out, yes, some people can't do it because they don't understand how they add the weight to their body. But I think there is a very urgent need, especially in the Western world, for the consequences of the stomach reduction. Not so much the stomach reduction, but when they remove the surplus skin, because this creates a subconscious psychological pressure for people. And diabetic is a stress, emotional condition related. We have proven this to be correct with our research in past 10 years. So maybe the body was happy with the large size. They cannot handle the smaller size. They cannot emotionally handle what is happening to them internally, plus all the physical changes. And this leads to diabetic condition. And because of the glands been overproducing for a large body, now it's surplus to it, they don't know what to do. There's so much produced which is not needed. So this is creating a large number of deaths at the moment, which is not reported because it comes as a diabetic, but it doesn't show as the consequences of the operation of the stomach reduction. Because that way the surgeons carry on doing what they are doing. Because they don't tell you. Ask the surgeons, if you're going for a stomach reduction, if you're going for this kind of skin removal after stomach reduction, can you show me a full history of, let's say, 10 of your patients in past 10 years? How many ended up with diabetic? How many ended up with death? How many ended up with cancer, skin cancer? The skin cancer doesn't come because of the operation. The skin cancer comes because in cutting the skin and connecting it together, you create a different environment, and the material solidifies, and the thymus does not send the right information through the glands for solidification. So it creates a new environment, a solidity, which you call it cancer, and the body cannot handle it, and it leads to death. The same thing, the same process is exactly with the pharmaceuticals, with chemotherapy. I always support chemotherapy. Now we know how to resolve the situation with chemotherapy. But pharmaceuticals, ask them, okay, you use this process of chemotherapy, show me how many of your patients were alive 10 years down the line. 0. 20 years down the line. 0. 5 years down the line, 50%. Not all the chemotherapies have that kind of thing, but some chemotherapies have that effect. So you can choose which chemotherapy you can use and understand the side effects it has. This is what we talked about the valves, the heart valves last time. Once you give a man a heart valve, you dictate the lifespan according to the average lifespan of the valve, because you cannot replace it for the second time. So these stomach reductions, people who go for it understand the consequences of it. We see it, and I refuse to accept these cases because I don't know what to do with it. It's not just because there's nothing you can do. It's too many things at the same time happening in the body. A large number of people who go for a stomach reduction and then removal of the skin, surface skin, end up with diabetic conditions and oxygen, lack of oxygen, which turns the lips in blue color. They call it lack of oxygen, and they end up with different kind of cancers around their body. So be careful in what you're doing. Part of this is because there is a connection with what you're emotionally accept and what you're physically been put through to. And when the two don't balance, you get diabetic. Diabetic has to do a lot with the emotion than actually with the physicality, but it manifests itself with physical diabetic when the emotional part is under stress. Because you got to understand why you need insulin. Go to the data and look at the structure of the insulin. And you understand the structure of insulin, exactly what it tells you, what kind of energy is needed and what kind of energies insulin releases. Always when you start working with the foundation work as a medical side, go and look always by a rule of thumb. The hydrogen balance in the structure of the material, connection with the hydrogen balance, and what radioactive material is available in that material, or what condition that material creates for radioactivity, for release of energy in other materials to be created. Look at the structure, just while you're online, just look at the structure of the insulin. It'll give you very much, the amount of insulin you use gives a very good indication about the state of your emotional part of your brain too. We've done tests with a number of cases that when you allow the emotional part to understand, to process itself for what it is and which is not acceptable to it, you find out that the use of insulin drops like a brick. We don't touch the physicality through the system, which is structured for interaction with the emotional part. Then you bring the emotional part into a balance, and then there is a less and less use for as a physical part, what you call the stress side, for the insulin and the sugar and the rest of it, and you come to a balance. You find out a lot of people get diabetic. Diabetic one is to the stress which comes from the time of birth, within the womb of the mother. Diabetic 2 always is created on the condition of the stress which the person does not want to accept. To do with the emotional part, which manifests itself in the physical part. Next question.
I have another question
Yes.
regarding the health, about the structure of the teeth. I was studying the crystal structure of the inside of the teeth and how it absorbs energy. Can you explain that?
Yeah. No.
No? Okay.
As dentists will tell you, your teeth are still, the outer skin of your teeth are still part of the skin of your body. So it's the same kind of structure, but the inside is to do with the physicality of it and how the nerves connect. And even you're chewing, you absorb energy through your teeth. It's not just a crunching system. A lot of information by chewing is passed on to the body and to the brain and to the rest. It's not a solid
So
thing.
if you get your teeth pulled out, then you're not going to be able to absorb those particular fields. You're going to have to find another way of doing it, correct?
Not really, because you can lose all your teeth, but you still receive the information through your gums or whatever, or to your stomach. But when you have teeth, you receive different kind of information through the skin. It's very much like when you're walking with your feet in the water and your hands are out of the water. How when you walk on the lake or whatever, you still see the lake, you know the water is there, but when you feel it with your feet, you get a different sensation. When you have teeth, it's the same. You don't miss anything from physicality of what the water is in the lake. But when you touch it, it's different. You get different kind of information. It doesn't change what you receive from it. I looked at this operation of teeth for a long time, how to be able to regrow it, because you know we have Dr. Ivan Mitchell, who's a dentist with us here as Knowledge Seeker, and one of my relatives is a dentist. We discussed this for years and years. So we understand it, but in so many ways you got to go into more detail than just what the tooth is and how you can regrow it.
Okay, thank you for answering the questions. If you can just please read the email whenever you get time this week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Keshe, we wanted to know how the frog was doing.
One of the frogs died yesterday, the one which had the shortage of, or we couldn't see the arms and legs. So we put in alcohol. When the knowledge seekers come back, we'll see they put in alcohol last night. The other one is very active. The new one is running around, and the other two are still there. So now we got 3 frogs left. We put a stone in the container where there is a frog that if he needs to come out, he can come on the stone. But we got to see if it goes through the evolution. There was something wrong with I told you there was abnormality with the frog. But this is in alcohol now. We're holding it till in the future. We
Right, you said last workshop about that, and right, it could just be an abnormality in the way it was produced, right? Just the genes.
It could be, most probably, yes or no. We don't know. We'll see. But now, what do you call it? I could see there was abnormality because don't forget we stand the condition here to see the development of thousands, literally thousands of tap holes every spring. Here is the second year we've seen it. Because of the raining season and the condition which we have an area which literally tens of thousands of tap holes are created. And we only see out of the whole lot maybe about 40-50 frogs coming out. We see them dead, we see them, some they are eaten by the others in the process of whatever happens, or getting picked up by the birds. But we have their brothers and sisters free, we see what they should be. But it seems a lot of abnormality with this little chap. We haven't seen it with the other one, so we've got to see what happens with the other 3. Next
so that
question.
means there's one that's left that was being fed GANs, and there's 2 that are left that were not as control.
No, we have 3 left with the GANs and 2 left with the normal condition. Altogether, we got 5 left out of 10 at the moment. Next question.
There was a question on the live stream about GANs. It goes, when copper GANs is produced, all the GANs material coming from the copper in the solution, or is some principal matter being converted to copper? Did you get that?
I don't understand it.
Okay, let me try it again. Well, he talks about producing copper GANs. I'm not sure what he means exactly, but when copper GANs is produced, is all the GANs material coming from the copper in the solution, or is some of the principal matter being converted to copper?
Could be both.
Okay.
Could be both. Because the environment in that area creates and enforces a copper GANs condition, more or less. But would some of the principal matter will manifest itself at a copper level? I think yes, it's possible. This happens in the universe. If you create a condition, the plasma will manifest itself in that condition. If you create, this is what we're going to do, hopefully with the knowledge seekers in the next few months, is as we said before, we're going to create the condition, the environment that other plasmas can be seen in. What we call, what do you call, what maybe you call it, a visibility box, where things which are not visible or tangible to us, we create a condition to be able to see it, if we can create that condition. There's a lot of things we have to learn, and a lot of things has to be done step by step. We're coming to a point now that we need international collaboration and cooperation. The position is that our lab and the material available to us is not sufficient enough to what do you call it, to go to the next steps. So in the coming days, in the coming weeks, I have already actually started requesting for international collaborations, and we have received a couple of favorable results by a couple of universities, because we need scientists who understand the technology in different aspects and they can add to it. So these things are needed to be done, and we need to bring some more scientists in to add to it.
So
There is something which is
if there's somebody listening that might know of some scientists that could contribute to testing or other means that might help the Spaceship Institute, that would be a good idea for them to try to get in contact.
there is something which is one of my concerns, and that is, as I said, we have a lot of problem with situation with Keshe Foundation as an institute to be located in one country, like in Italy. From what I've seen here in past 6 months and from what I see, I don't think we have the rights to create a condition that the whole knowledge has to be kept in one institute, in one place. What happens if Italy gets hit or something happens here? What happens to Malta? What happens to our friends in America, in Iran, or in Japan, or anywhere else? What I've been thinking is, maybe we have to start thinking that please start setting up your own independent Keshe Foundations and try to support one or two scientists that they can run these foundations on a correct basis and balance. The political structure and the economical structure does not allow a lot of people, a lot of scientists to move. And we've seen it in the past a few weeks very much with Ukraine. Suddenly how a nation, one of the biggest nations in the world, has become suddenly isolated and nobody can do anything with them like Russia. Just because the others decide. If you work with as a Keshe Foundation with opening Keshe Foundation, do not send us emails. We would like to open a Keshe Foundation. Can we have a permission? You all have your own Keshe Foundations and your permits. Set it up according to the ethos of the Keshe Foundation in Holland. Is your nations, is your national interest, is your more or less humanity interest. So set up Keshe Foundations and at the same time put financial resources that you can set up full research scientists to work. Don't wait for us to do it. We try to teach and do things. Maybe the center here in Italy will become like a point of catching up or adding into. I was talking to our webmaster, as usual, goes one ear and goes out of the other one, is to set up a position that all the knowledges, all the things you find, you just send it to the knowledge center and it's kept there. Maybe in the future can be used by somebody else. The Keshe Foundations, the way you do your research, should not be connected to the foundation totally in Italy. Please set up your own Keshe Foundations and set up the structure of the management of your own teaching, translating. Do not wait for a structure or what do you call it, for us here or through Holland to get a way for you to find a way to help your nation or your people. We are the knowledge bank. We disperse with all the knowledge, and we have to open a knowledge center that all the knowledge of all the foundations goes into one center, freely accessible by every man on this planet. But do not look for us to provide everything. Now you are getting equal knowledge from us as we get from you. Set up your own Keshe Foundations. Find a way to finance scientists who can work full-time or part-time for your foundation in your nation. What happens if, for example, we lose one of the French or another speaking language person here by death or by accident or by moving? That culture, that nation should not be deprived because somebody's gone. What happens to it? We've seen that with Coquet and the Spanish group. This shows a weakness in the structure. You got to set up your own Keshe Foundations, finance scientists, finance programs that you can support your own scientists but connected to us. Keshe Foundation has no borders, no boundaries. Knowledge is freely given to all of you. And time has come that we have to change the game. That you have to start setting up your own Keshe Foundations. You don't do it because I'm here or somebody was here, now it's gone, we lost the connection. Try to make a bank and go to the bank and find out what is in the bank, what you want to do, what is the availability of it. Because what happens in a few years' time or in 10 years' time when I'm not here? The foundation has to start building its own base with their own scientists and the people who are there. Everybody looks to knowledge seekers and to the Keshe Foundation in Holland. Set up your own foundations and finance your own foundations the way we do. And employ a couple of doctors or scientists and make it facilities available to them to be able to do the research. for your nations or to make systems for your own people. This is what we are doing here in Italy, and that's what my arrangement is with the Japanese. It's got to be a point. You have all these chat rooms, you have all these Keshe Foundation thought groups in different languages. Now start financing, make programs, make meetings, make whatever is needed to have scientists to work full-time, part-time, and to educate full-time, part-time others. You got to become independent, because the way I see it, if I die tomorrow, there'll be no Keshe Foundation left. And all the knowledge will be lost except some books. While I'm alive and I can support and teach you or add to your knowledge, or you can add to our knowledge, or set up your own foundations in Canada, set up a foundation in America or anywhere else. And look and raise funds amongst yourself and amongst people who support you by translating the books, by translating the papers, by selling power cells and to create knowledge. I think one of the resources for the foundation to be able to be set up, and we are looking to do it, is through it'll be through these day and night torches, or through the cup of life. That structure yourselves to become the managers of these foundations, and take from them what you need, as much as you need, and put the balance into the foundation. It doesn't mean that if you come and work for foundation, you set up, you have to start because you're helping a charity. It has to be correct. When your soul is at peace and your life is at peace, you serve better the humanity. Don't send me emails, we want to open the Keshe Foundation in God knows somewhere, all these conditions. It's yours if you want. You allow the proceeds to go to the Keshe Foundation in Holland, then it goes back to humanity in different ways. We don't create borders. It's you who's creating the borders and the conditions. We haven't put anywhere, this is the Keshe Foundation, you have to give so much to the foundation if you open up. You've seen our work, we help you the way we can. Start setting up Keshe Foundation, start funding your own research and your own development. You don't need to know if it can be done 100 watt or 100 volt system. If you can finance your own researchers, like a Spanish group, in one group there's about 8,000 of you. Put $1 a month and support a center and a scientist, or one or two scientists, part-time or full-time, in the field you like them to research for you. Keshe Foundation China is tens of thousands of you. $1 even a year will support a lot of research. This looking for feeding from the center from here has to stop. We are here to support you. What happened tomorrow if I die? It's inevitable. I have a physical lifetime. Start supporting, and then if you can support enough, support other foundations to be set up around the world, and it's the same thing. When I received a call, when I spoke with the ambassadors regarding the African situation, we didn't put any contract, this is it, what we need, blah. No, the material was made. We send the package, everything is done, it's free. Because there is a need for it. And if the result is correct, they'll be taught how to do it in Africa, that they don't need nothing in the West from the rest of the world, because they have everything there to support themselves. Start setting up Keshe Foundations according to the ethos of the foundation, to be free knowledge for everyone. And as I said, there's a physical dimension to it. Just donate $1, $5, $10 a month or whatever. 8,000 of you is 80,000. You can have a better foundation center organizations than we have here in Belgium, in Italy. We support you. You have people who understand the technology. I was talking to consul and ambassador a couple of weeks ago, and he said we have set up an organization in our country to do with the development of our understanding of the knowledge of the Keshe Foundation. The ambassadors, they are doing it themselves for their own nations. Don't come and look for us to give you this and that. It has to be, if you're setting up a Keshe Foundation, set up on the ethos of the Keshe Foundation in Holland and serve your nation and serve your people. Doesn't matter, there is no nationality border. There is something I've got to say before I forget. I don't know if you know the Camelot group, Camelot project. Kerry Cassidy is passing through Italy in the next few weeks. She has asked to organize, if anybody wants to do it, organize a meet the presentation for her in North Italy. If anybody is interested, we offer it to someone here to be able to do it. But if you are interested to set up such a thing from the Italian group, please contact us or Kerry Cassidy Camelot group that you can organize. They're looking for 50 to 100 people. Most probably I'll be there at the presentation. But if you want to do that, it's open to you to do it. Any other question?
Well, that certainly sounds like an excellent opportunity for somebody in Italy. Project Camelot's pretty highly regarded around the world, I think.
I think it sounds like an excellent opportunity for every one of us to be able to do that. To be able to open up a foundation.
That's right, Vince. In fact, it's almost a personal thing. You can open up your own foundation within yourself right now, tonight. Your own personal foundation. Yeah. Invite others into it, you know.
You got to start setting up these and start what you call physically bringing scientists together to do it. And you have to set up your own research centers. Start with little, the rest will come. If you do it with a pure heart and a true meaning of serving humanity, you'll find out your foundation will grow quite rapidly. People will come to you and tell you, I want to be part of it. But at the same time, they have to be able to physically to support themselves if they're working 24 hours for you, unless they come from a rich daddy.
And there are more and more scientists and technologists who are getting involved in nanotechnology now, and nanotechnology institutes are being formed and built all over the world in many countries. One recently in South Africa, for example. So there might be scientists that could that would like to get involved with the Keshe Foundation part-time, say, and people might be able to contact them.
The one in South Africa is for environmental. We are in contact with them. We are in touch with them. Is Professor Rathame? I can't remember I can't pronounce his name. But we are directly in contact with the university, with South Africa. It's a environmental use of nanotechnology and nanoscience for environment. Right? The link came, I think, through Rick, or somebody sent me the link. And we follow it up at the moment. He was on holidays, he's come back. So we see how it can be used and how it can be processed further for South Africa. Because this is needed for, especially to do with Ebola.
Yeah, I think I sent that link, so I'm glad that something came out of it. And I know you have a connection with South Africa. You spent some time there, have you not?
My connection goes with the government of Sierra Leone.
Oh, okay.
We are well placed in Sierra Leone in the universities and the 3 universities they have, and within the structure of the government. And that's why, as I said, the request for the Ebola, this sits there because even if you produce the material, if even the trial in Africa is successful, unfortunately these countries, except Nigeria, does not have the resources, even the machinery to make these things. As simple as machines, the material don't exist. So we have 2 choices. We have to look to Nigeria or to South Africa for making of the materials to be sent to different zones in Africa. The people who lived in Africa understand. You know, a lead machine, which is a simple lead machine, does not exist more or less in Africa. Maybe 1 or 2 in a full nation, but in every workshop, in every college in the West, there's 10 of them. So even if we have a success with our trials in Africa with Ebola, we need to go to the neighboring nations for production of the material to be able to reach the affected areas. So we have to keep this position open, and that's why, if you can set up your own foundations, please set it up. Don't look at us, what can we do? We support you in every way we can. We try to teach and work with the scientists and the centers. So when we do the workshops in next future, should not be only here. Different workshops of the Keshe Foundation you set up have to be online to teach. This is getting to a point. We will launch the day and night cells or the torches here in Italy, because now we are directly involved, hands-on with it. So it's going to be very, very rapidly tested and done. Then we will produce the what do you call it? The cleaning material for environment here in Italy in the next few weeks, again with conjunction with the foundation. And whatever we do here stays in Italy. You have to set up the same thing in your countries. If you need us to give you the design and the pattern of the day and night torch that you can start manufacturing and supporting the foundations in your countries, that's possible. But it becomes a way to make money for you to just to have something in there. That's something you have to organize. But we feed the knowledge. You have to set up the foundations, and the knowledge from here will feed to the foundations that they can research. They set up their own research centers.
Certainly, I think that if those people who were setting up Keshe centers had something of the physical realm to demonstrate, like the torch, or some experiment, a reactor of some sort, static or dynamic, something that can show or illustrate the technology and how it can be used, perhaps, or at least just demonstrating fields, or the MagGrav fields.
The thing is, I don't know, most of you have seen the torch. It's not a demonstration. Maybe in the next workshop next week, we show the torch. We open the cameras in here that people can see the working, because we've shown this in a number of presentations. If people need to see, we can show, there is no problem.
Yeah, we're humans. We like to see physical things. Otherwise, it's hard to believe.
Yeah. I think what we'll do next week, I'll bring the torch. We open the cameras and we show it that people can see the torch. Maybe they find a different way to replicate it. I made this torch nearly 5, 6, 7 years ago. To me, is something which has been here for long enough. And if then we can look into it and see if people need to see to believe. It's been shown enough in different presentations, but they can see how it is, how easy it is. We showed it in Tuscany.
You need to pass the torch, you might say.
Maybe we become Olympic players, are we?
Maybe that's what needs. That's where the torch needs to be in the Olympics. That would give you some promotion.
Well, no, they want to see fire, light.
Well, it's time. Like you said, this is the quote that struck me many years ago, and one of the main reasons I'm stuck with your teaching the whole time was you said in one of your first movie lectures at the start of, I think, the first movie, that it's time for mankind to stop the burning. And it just struck me. It was just such a simple, straightforward sentence. And you were there in front of this fireplace showing the fire and how mankind is used to fire and it's their habit for, eons. From time we were in caves, the fire has been very important. But now we have an opportunity to go beyond burning things and instead engage other energies that are of a higher nature. So that's always stuck with me.
Next week we try to, I don't know if the camera works, but we test it. That if we can open the camera on Skype and I'll bring the torch and other materials that people can ask and we can demonstrate live.
Oh,
there's a problem.
Yeah.
There's a problem with people who look at I've seen people trying to make different ganses to see, and they say they can power their what do you call it, the LED lights or whatever. When you use liquid, as we've seen with our test, you will produce GANs, and after a while the system blocks. So you cannot use a system which has liquid in it, because as you see, the gas will. We have sealed containers with electrodes in it. After a few days, they literally get a lot of material clocked in. The gas is produced, and the process stops. So the way to do it is to do it with the wires without the contamination. And I'll show you how to build these things in the video, which will go on the internet.
But Mr. Keshe, if you used a distilled water, I don't believe you get any GANs with distilled water, right?
You still do. Because the way you nano-coated it, you still carry material on your coating. I have done a lot of different tests in different containers, distilled water, non-distilled water, but somehow once the process starts, you cannot stop it. In the spherical test unit, we haven't seen any GANs, and we use normal water. We use a normal water from the tap. Any other question? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Keshe. I set it up one cell again with copper and zinc, and it's producing the second day. I can really collect so much. It's unbelievable. Maybe the way I set it up, but it's really a lot. I posted a video if you can see it. It's the second day, like 24 hours.
What are you producing? CO2?
CO2. It's 24 hours the minute I started it, and it's one cell only.
And by CO2, Armin, you mean the white material?
Yes.
Someone had a question earlier that they were producing a blue material with their copper, and they were wondering if that was
But the zinc and copper, I just repeated the process, Mr. Keshe, and it's really this 24 hours. I am surprised. Like when we set it up, it took like 3-4 days, and then it started to produce. But this one is producing unbelievable, and still it does. I just shaking it, because it's on a copper nano-coated part. There is like clogging, but when you shake it a little bit, it's freeze up and process starts again.
So what did you do that was different with this process, Armin?
Use video.
Okay.
Yeah, Armin, you're talking about having the wavy sign-like pattern on one side and then the other side cut into strips, but yet all the same material.
Yeah, correct. And it's really just mixing it to you to see. It's a 24 hours. And today even it's more, a lot more.
And what salinity are you using?
What is it?
What's the content salt of your water?
It's a sea salt, maybe 30%. Like I have a ppm tomorrow, and we'll pick it up so I can measure ppm. So I will tell you exactly, because I am using filtered water, 0 ppm. So when I add salt, I can measure the ppm, but it's not with me. I will post that later on.
No, but that's just the parts per million, not the salinity, the content of the water.
ppm, still it's gonna show you. I tried it.
So you think this is 30% that you're making?
I think so, yes. It's a little bit heavier.
Don't forget, Armin is becoming the specialist in these things. He's gathering a lot of knowledge, but at the same time, he's got a talent of testing without borders or limitation to see what the outcome is, and that he's literally comes up with ideas, but in the coming time we have to put data that people can repeat the same process. So the other problem is that all the salts are not the same, and the different content of the sea salt, it gives different results. Even though we use so many percentage of the same thing, as I always say, if you use the white salt, table salt, they say sea salt, but there's a little phrase in front of it. It says refined sea salt. You'll find most of your results should be the same because it's the same material. But if you use real sea salt, then your results and your outcomes will be different every time you test, because different seas and different salts have different mineral content.
Right. Today I used kosher, and I will see what outcome it will be.
You what?
Kosher salt.
Kosher salt. How do you kosher the salt?
I don't know how they kosher the salt, but it says kosher salt. So I'm gonna try today.
I've used Epsom salts too.
Anyway, it's interesting, you know, how little change can change all the production.
Right, but that should be a change in the structure of the electrodes. That seems more likely the
24 hours
from the outcome.
because we done this with like plates with no cuts. It was totally different. It was very slow. But this
Have
one,
you looked
it's
at the
unbelievable.
Done it with pins, done it with twisted wires, done it with a bunch of other things too. So
Yeah, but this way, you know, I don't know. You'll see it. Do it yourself because I
Yeah,
repeated it
I
and
seen
it's
it.
great. So
I
it's not
seen it. It looked really good.
24 hours now. So I can feel a like small reactor.
We have a problem with the sound somewhere. We have a problem with the sound. We keep on losing Armin.
Yeah, because I keep talking over him. Sorry.
Yeah, but we got to see what salt you use, because each salt is a different condition.
Sea salt, Mr. It's a sea salt, Pacific sea salt, Pacific Ocean sea salt. That's the only thing I used today. I changed it to the kosher to see what's the difference. Today I changed it to the kosher, you know, but I used it sea salt, Pacific Ocean sea salt. So I don't know if it's gonna be different.
Let us know next week.
Sure, I will. And I want to try with Himalayan salt and see if you tried it, Mr. Kesh. Is it any difference with Himalayan salt? Because it's kind of reddish.
Yeah, it's pinkish salt.
Yeah. Yes.
Pinkish reddish, yeah. No, we never tested it. We never tried it. Because even this, the problem is when you see refined, most of the salts you buy is refined salts.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be sodium chloride, right?
Yeah, it's this
Pure
condition.
sodium chloride. Whereas apparently some of the other salts might have some potassium chloride in it, which would change things.
Well, just be careful there, because I can go down to my local quote-unquote health food store and get quote-unquote unrefined sea salt, but it looks exactly the same as table salt. So I know that that's probably not correct. So what I did find there, though, was a Celtic sea salt, which is a grayish matter, which more looks like what you would get out of the sea.
There are so many salts, you know, unbelievable.
Yeah, but
oh yes. Yeah.
As I said before, when you get a real sea salt, the only way for you to know if it's real sea salt is to melt your salt in a container and leave it for a few minutes. If you get like a dirty cloud on the top and you get the layer at the bottom, it's like a blackish grayish layer, very thin layer, then that's a sea salt. If you buy a sea salt and dilute it, leave it for a few minutes and you get nothing on it, it's a refined. Is the easiest
Yes.
way I found that it can be done, because the sea salt carries all the minerals and the dirt which comes from the sea. And the way they do this sea salt is that they open trenches and they fill it up with water and leave it to dry. And so everything which is an element of the air and the sea is part of it. And even if you use real sea salt at home, you have to wash the sea salt, which is by putting it in the, dilute it in warm water and leave it till it cools, and then you see a black layer or a dark layer on the top and a dark layer at the bottom. You can clean up the top with the tissue, just roll it around the top, it absorbs everything, gets stuck to the tissue, and the rest of it you can put through a filter. At the bottom you don't touch, and then you know you really have a sea salt or not. Then you have
Yeah,
different
that's
effects.
exactly what happened with the Celtic sea salt.
You have a dirt.
Yeah, but we use
Yep.
filters.
Yeah, the only thing is...
Yeah, the end process.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the salt, you get the sea salt, but without all the minerals and other things. You know, when you get a sea salt, you have everything which is in the sea. Bits of bone of the fish, bits of their excrement, everything is in there. So a bit of the dirt, whatever has been floating on the land and the oceans of this planet. So when you wash it, partially the ones which can materialize will come on the top and the bottom. You still have a lot of metals floating in the part which are clear, but and other elements, but that's no problem. But because these materials which settle on the top and the bottom, when you put in your system, they create clogs and they block the system, or they cover up the system, or they get around it. So this way you do the cleaning before you add to it. I had somebody yesterday looking at the containers, and with one look, because it's his job, he's taught, he's scientist in that way. He looked at the copper containers which Armand made before we leave, which are all blue, and he said, this is oil structure on top of these. And the other ones which were on the other tables, he said, these are fat structure, and he explained to me how they recognize between the oil and the fat. He says this is a protein oil, as oil, like a cooking oil, and he said this here is like a fat. It's got protein structure in it. He's a teacher in that field of science. Scientists who understand these things with one look, they can explain to us what they see and how it is and what the structure is. Which process helps the production of which salt helps with the production of which fat, which protein. Armand, are you still getting some fat on top of this cell which is producing so much?
Yes. Yes, it started.
Yeah, it's proven that the oil and what we call, what was allegationally or misspokenly called fossil fuel, has nothing to do with the fossils.
Mm-hmm.
The oil which we use in our cars and in our engines, and the oil we use as a fat of animal, all created through the process of the conversion of the gases in the upper section of this planet, in its atmosphere. And it will forever be done. Oil will never ever finish on this planet. And strange enough, what we see is that what they call global warming, or what they call by the increase of the CO2, the more CO2 we produce, the faster we increase the production of the oil. So what is said to be that the CO2 or a global warming is helping with production of what we are using it to produce, the the oil. So what it would have taken, let's say, 1 million years to be produced, now we produce it in 10, 20 years by releasing the CO2 in the atmosphere through what they say. The process of something which is strange enough is that part of the heating of this planet, which is they said is going to increase in the next so many years, that the North Pole and the South Pole the ice will melt and the rest of it. This is going to be a natural process as we are entering a phase of getting closer to our sun. Naturally, the poles within the next 100, 200 million years will melt because we reach so close by a factor of few millimeters to closer to our sun because the gravitational pull is pulling us to itself. These poles will melt. They have nothing to do with global warming. This is a misconception, but it sells a lot of people to sell a lot of trees. It's a good business, but in fact, as we used to be in, what do you call it, near the Jupiter, that was the position of the Earth millions of years ago, billions of years ago. Now that we have come close, the heat of the sun will melt the ices in the poles. Anyway, this is the beginning of the end of the life on this planet, depending on the water, because then the whole liquid of this planet will evaporate and will push to the back of the boundaries of this solar system and be absorbed by other planets or become solid on the edges of it and rain back in again. So what they are trying to tell us that the global warming is increasing the heating, the melting of the poles. This, in fact, is a natural process of the Earth coming slightly closer to the pull of the Earth by the mother, by the sun. It has nothing to do with global warming. Global warming has been warming us from the time as we got closer and closer from Saturn to here. But the heat now gets to the point that when we can take a position of Venus and everything else, all this liquid will evaporate to the back end of the solar system, and we start getting hotter as we get closer to the mother. Is there any other question? Are we still there, or?
I'm pretty much questioned out here. Maybe we should wrap things up soon.
Okay, maybe we can do a teaching on a different direction or explanation on different direction today. Let us teach or let us learn how to pray through your soul that you can reach. Let us learn how we can give through our souls that we can elevate other souls to the level that we are in, or without prejudice, allowing their souls to elevate above our soul, without the fear that there'll be anything, we'll be short of anything. Maybe this is what has never been taught by the Prophet of the past, is that giving does not need to be by words and by thoughts, but it has to be by emotion, where it touches the soul and touches gives to the receiver what he needs to take from it. Maybe is the way to understand by giving we don't lose anything, and by giving we don't become less poor or poorer. Maybe is a new way of teaching, the way we teach and the way we live in the universe. Detached from physicality, but attached to the emotions that can affect the physicality, because the physical side of any being in the universe is a slave to the emotion. Maybe it's time to start a new way of looking and how to share not only the knowledge but the emotions in the true sense, or allowing access to each to the soul. This is where you can open your soul to any soul to receive what they need. At the same time, you find out you receive what the soul needs to give. So at the same time as you're a teacher, you become a student. At the same time as you're a nourisher, you get nourished from the higher levels or equal and plus. Maybe I'll go back to the question or something which was raised by Rick about, or question raised about what do we think about Gaza. Let us all give freely to through our soul to the Prime Minister of Israel, that his soul will receive as much as he needs, and through it will affect the work and the direction. Maybe by giving freely to his soul to take what he leaves, we reach the soul of the people who finance these things. Because the man is a spokesman, and the people who decide sit behind the curtains. Maybe through his soul we can reach those who finance these things or encourage these things, that their soul changes. We don't pray for the man, we pray for the soul of the man, or we give to the soul of the man. There are hundreds of thousands of millions of, there are millions of supporters of Keshe Foundation we know around the world. And I know a lot of people listen to these workshops. You spend time every day and open your soul to the Prime Minister of Israel, and the same to the other side. That through them will reach to their paymasters. And through them, they will see that the man elevates to the next point, next position. And maybe, as I say, the situation which is in Gaza and the Prime Minister of Israel is a test for mankind to learn how to teach or how to give freely to one soul when it's in need of. The souls who create conditions like this, the souls who support creation conditions, the physicalities which support these conditions for the physical side to do and talk about, they are in need. So let's fulfill their souls, that they have no needs. Don't punish them, but give them enough that they have enough, they don't look in another pocket. This goes the same to the Rothschild family. Let's pray for them, let's give our souls to them, to elevate them, that they find through their finances to finance peace, not arms. We are very clear of who supports and which soul and which physicality is supporting what. Let them use their talents and their finances for the better of man through their souls. When you go to sleep, when you have peace time, not necessarily going to sleep, just open your heart, your emotional side or your soul to the whole Rothschild family. They need, but when their soul is satisfied, their physicality will change direction. Maybe then the money which is spent on developing weapons will be spent on developing and finding solutions for mankind. I don't know, but maybe we need to pray for our own soul to evolve, that through that we can evolve and reach them. Every soul on this planet has the power to reach the status of the soul of the prophet of the past. You can attain the levels of the souls of His Holiness the Christ, or bless His name Muhammad. It's you who puts the limitation, not your soul. And through that, if sharing of a body and a bread could reach 2.2 billion people on this planet after 2,000 years, maybe 1 million of us can reach a few handful of the souls of Rothschild and Prime Minister of Israel and the people who run their country. That they open their gates of their soul to their body, that we find peace, and through it we find development. The maturity of the man has come when there has been equality. For years they spoke about the slavery, how much a slave they used to make the pyramids of Egypt. And now that documents have been translated and stones have been read, we find out has been very, very little between the top man in the army and the soldier who pushed the stones. Because there was equality. Because without one, the other one couldn't complete. Maybe it's time to share the soul, not the prayers. And then we can reach a point of 300-400 years of Rothschild financing wars to create money more. We give them all the wealth, but at the same time we give the wealth from the soul, not the physicality. If man makes history of the people who financed wars and created conditions for wars to be created, in the time coming you'll find out no one of them will reach beyond the solar cell of this solar cell. Because the life in universe will not allow them to pass. So even for those who call themselves the financiers of the war, and every war, the ones who speak about the war, they start learning about the war. Till we don't stop the wars in man, in himself and with his nations and with his rest of the fellow man, we have not developed the structure to be able to join the universal condition. It's very, very strange. 10 years ago, all the Western nations were in a hurry to get to Iraq because it was a lot to rob. Central bank was full of gold. And today the same nation is under more threat and nobody wants to go in because they already robbed the central bank. We might send a few drones and we might attack a few people, but the country is in total absolute chaos. Because there is no more money to rob, there is no interest because they know they robbed it. Maybe if we rob all the nations of all their gold, Rothschilds will not be interested in any more wars. I pray for your souls. All of you under any name of company or whatever you work under. It's not building a reactor to match the soul of these people, to affect them. Their souls has to receive so much that by saturated has no choice but to find a position to become part of. And because all of us, we have a mother gene connection, we can reach these people very easily through our souls. If we punish the Rothschilds or the people who finance these kind of wars for over years, because the war makes money by selling the arms and then by development afterwards, there'll be no guns left, and there'll be no names left to be, what do you call it, proud of what they do. There is a reason we are here in Italy. We sit not very far from the house of Christ, and we closest sit to biggest arm manufacturing factory in the world. Every time I go to Brescia, I feel death. I feel the clunk of how much death is planned in this city, and I pray for the soul of the people, and one day these workers will not go to work to make guns. Sometimes I think what happens if the material now they're using here, all the carbons and all the other things to make the guns and all the ammunition they're planning and they're building here within kilometers from here, can be used to make gases to feed the rest of the world and make systems that we can fly out of this place. What is about to come to it? There is 40% unemployment in Italy. 40% between age of 18 and 35. How can we put so many people back to useful contribution to the community and humanity? Not by guns. Not by killing. I hear a lot of people saying it's their program to kill as many people as they can kill, to feel power. They enjoy torturing and killing. You have to give enough to the soul that that habit of man disappears. Devil doesn't exist except within the man himself, when he cannot accept the work of his own physicality in response and parallel to his emotions and his soul. Let us learn to pray by giving freely from our soul, that we elevate them. And Rothschilds and the people who finance these wars for centuries need a lot of it, because it's become their habit. They don't see how low they are. They become so low in their soul level that to them, that's the only position they know. Let us share our souls with the Pope and with all the religious leaders, that through them we find, through their soul, to the soul of their, what we call Commander-in-Chief, which is the Christ, blessed his name, and Muhammad, blessed his soul, and Moses, God's name be on him. That there follows through their name, they'll find peace and balance. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you,
And I
Mr.
hope you enjoy life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you very much. See you next Thursday.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay, that'll be the end of the 23rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Thank you everybody for attending, and especially all the folks on live stream. Had lots of questions tonight. It was good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rick, from you too. Appreciate it always.
And back to you too, Armin.